you move to the third one. Close air support mainly comes in three phases, the planning, preparation, and execution of a CAS support. Now, close air support means close. In real life, anything that's less than 2 km, 2 kilometers of request for a support is called close air support. It's almost danger close already. Obviously, in Arma, when we play, we hardly get this kind of distance. Most likely, we will look at 1 km. I consider it as a close support. 2 km is considered, I'll call it air support only, not close air support already, because in Arma, the maps are smaller. But in real life, anything beyond 2 km is called air support, not close air support. Okay, move to the third one. The third slide is calling a planning of CAS. Uh, Planning of CAS, if you follow the arrows, you start from a briefing. From the briefing, it's very important that all of us are planning or and sharing of intel before we go into the AO, and it's very important that the JTAC also understands what is the potential threats out there and what is actually the mission all about, and you analyze the missions, and with all those things in line, you will be working with the pilots to carry the right ordnance, plan the route, everything, getting the right frequencies on radios and all that, and what kind of rules of engagement lah. So that's your main planning part, where you have to understand uh, what are the potential air threats also, uh, whether there's a potential high value target, which are like mostly armor lah. Armor would be the most key potential high value targets for any CAS support, or because on the ground, if you have troops versus troops, I think you leave it to them to handle it lah. Don't send a CAS and start raining down rockets into a small squad. Not necessary. Uh, there's also, like I said, in the planning, if there is a artillery suppression coming from friendlies on one side, you need to know in advance. Then after that, you from the main planning, you would move into planning your OPs, whether you follow this, what you call that, the platoon lead, or you were to create your own OP at a certain strategic area, most likely at a high elevation area, or you don't want to have an OP in the middle of the woods. It's not going to make any difference. And then you would also plan battle positions or IP positions for the pilots. By right, JTAC is the one that's supposed to plan IPs and OPs, not the pilot. In our games, a lot of times, because our JTACs are just well, not really sufficient or proficient in all the procedures, the pilots will be putting the IPs and OPs. In real life, the JTAC, in consultation of the pilots, would be the one that plays where is a good IP and where's a good BP, and also where's a good OP for yourself. All right. You also understand where is restricted areas, certain areas where a lot of friendlies, or let's say on the west of grid line 677542, west, total whole west of that sites are restricted airspace. You must make sure that you tell the pilot this is no go, no fly zones. uh, and other than that is you know look at what kind of threats there are on the ground. For JTAC threats, usually are SAMs lah. JTAC don't really go and find out what is an air threat. Uh, when you send in CAS, the air threats, it's mainly for another the what they call a CAP patrol, combat air patrol site to manage. That means the if you have combat air patrol, then they will be taking care of air threats. But as a JTAC, if you see a frog foot in the area that's coming for our CAS, by right you should ask them to bug out already. You shouldn't ask them to. You shouldn't be assigning CAS to go and take out a frog foot that is air-to-air combat, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because if you are
So the combat
CAS,
air patrol is a sky team. I mean, the team is operating up in the air.
combat air patrol would be something that, let's say, you would have a squadron, or maybe a jet that's with the weapons of sidewinders and AIM 120. That would usually be uh, in many ways controlled by either the tower or by well, they have an air battalion commander lah, not the JTAC lah.
So, but to report in the, let's say, the frog foot to the commander is the JTAC job, right?
Yes,
To report.
yes,
And
you must report if you do see a threat. If you see well, frog foots are also close air support from the enemy. But let's say if you see a Su-27 or MiG 2027, Su-29, when you see those, it's very clear those are air-to-air aircraft. When you see that, you report it right away. Before you even report it, you should be asking your CAS to pretty much get out of the area already. So A-10s, Apaches, and all that, they are not really built to go for air-to-air. So they have defenses air-to-air. That means that they have maybe 2 or 4 stingers on the Apache and maybe 2 sidewinders on a CAS Harrier or A-10. That is mainly used for defense, not for attack. The moment you see a air-to-air threat, he either run away, but if he can't run away, that's what the defenses are for. So JTAC will say we have intel on incoming air-to-air threat. Move to bug out to IP, east or IP, or maybe even to a point further out. You may even ask to RTB and stand by there. Things like that. All right, and then if we are lucky, we have our own cap. Then the cap will take care of the air-to-air. All right.
okay, one more question, right?
Sure.
In the planning of the IP and OP for the JTAC, does he have to refer it to the commander, platoon commander, or the squad?
Yes, usually this happens in a total briefing when the platoon commander calls in all the squad leaders, the what you call it, the aircraft JTAC, all will also join that meeting, and that's when you usually start to have the initial planning of all where the OP is, where the IP is, where the CP is, and all that. So the JTAC has a say also that after the infantry on the ground says this is my CP, and then we'll move to CP1, CP2, CP3 via vehicle and all that. When the JTAC sees the movements of, let's say it's a convoy mission and all that, then the JTAC will understand the movement of the intent of the commander. That's when he advises that if you are moving here, I will be having an OP here, and I will have 2 Apaches on station on a BP north of it, things like that. As well, I will have 2 A-10 on station way off at IP Dodge or something, which is like almost like 5 kilometers north of Altis or something like that. So that's when you would, as a JTAC, would contribute to the planning in the main initial briefing.
So in a way, the JTAC team, right, if it's a pair or solo, right, he can actually be quite far away from the main squad or platoon.
Yeah, that's affirmative. If there is a specific mission that allows a insertion of the JTAC, or even the JTAC take a truck that drives to a certain area, yeah, they can be quite independent once the plan has been done. Then they can actually go to an area. What the JTAC usually don't do is to join the CQB and go into buildings and start clearing buildings. When he dies in there, you have a big problem already. You JTAC is more of a support level which moves into the back lines of the what you call that. You don't go into the front lines, as well as you don't join the attacking squad and all that. You are more on the JTAC is more on the support line. But yes, James, yes, you can detach yourself from the HQ if the mission says that there's a pre-planned OP.
Okay.
Right? Any questions? Then we'll move to the next one. The next slide is the CAS preparation. Well, once the whole planning is done, that's when you start to move out. When you move out, you follow through the whole entire CAS plan. There are initial CAS plans that are already predetermined in the beginning. Sometimes let's say if you want to attack an airfield, there will be a plan to also put an OP in a close by observation site, overwatch site, that the JTAC will move together with either the recon team or even with a sniper team all the way to the observation point. Uh, we will establish the OP there, and then once you are there, the mission is to clear the airfield. Basically, it's almost like the recon with the snipers. You start to scout the entire airfield and make sure you observe all the targets. Mark the targets in terms of distance. So let's say the tower from you, like okay, the two missions before, when I went in with James on a recon team. Once we get to our OP site also as a recon team, we the first thing I did was to mark something that's the most obvious. There was a tower, a tall tower there, and in the map it doesn't say tower, so I marked a tower there already on the map, so that other people go in, at least you can use that as a reference point. So from where we were, I already know from my position to that tower, it's already about 600 meters. So from that, I agak-agak anything that is slightly in front or further, I don't even need to quickly get a range. I can pretty much guess that the range is about 300 meters because I know that 500 meters is the target already, the tower already. Likewise, if you are in an OP to observe, let's say, airfield, then you know you start to pick some key landmarks like the control tower, a very big hangar, or the end of the runway on the east side or something like that. Then you would maybe call it names lah. Maybe you can assign certain call signs there. You can assign uh, what you call that, uh, CP1 or something, or CP2 or CP33. You don't conflict with other signs, but you can mark it there for yourselves, so that when you call, let's say, the tower, then 200 meters west of tower, then you know that someone would know that the tower is there. 200 west from it is where the mark that you want to go. So you start putting kind of like pins onto the area, AO, for your own reference, as well as if you can talk to the aircraft, you can guide them down also. All right. So that's after the movement to the OA, you start to observe. And when you observe, then you wait for the main troops to come in and you follow through the battle order lah. So, assuming before the troops arrive at phase line 1, you start to call in a first wave of aircraft to, maybe even usually sometimes what in real life what they do is they will call in the interdiction to immediately destroy the runway first. So like A-10s will drop runway, there are bombs built to damage runway lah. So it will drop in a sequence, then the runway is all damaged already. Then aircraft from the airport cannot take off already. So fighters and all that cannot retaliate and cannot take off. So that's your wave 1, is to basically kill all that. Actually, before even that, the first wave is usually to bring in a what they call a SEAD, suppression of enemy air defense, SEAD. So suppression of enemy air defense is a mission whereby maybe F-18s will go there and start shooting their what you call it, the HARMs, radar designated, to kill, to basically destroy all the radars, so that you blind the enemy already. Once you kill all the radars, then the SAM have a tough time shooting. The radar guided SAM have a tough time shooting. Then they have to rely on infrared missiles. So you see that there's a battle order that the JTAC will start to call in the SEAD mission first. Then when the SEAD is completed, mission achieved, then you have how you say, the other air assets are most safer to move in. Then you send in another one to clear to destroy the runway. Then you can't have any more enemy AA threats flying. Then only you send in the CAS. So once the CAS come in, then the CAS will give very close support in terms of destroying the armor there without needing to worry about other enemy threats, which are mainly ground threats SAMs and IRs and all that. So you see the battle order of a JTAC is not so straightforward. It's quite interesting one if you think about it. Okay. Move to the next page. This is what I was talking about earlier. The next page, you see the execution part. Execution part is mainly you look in many areas already. You start to, as a JTAC, you start to look into the, you make sure you start to track your friendlies. If it's a armor division coming from one side, your troops are coming from another area, you have a convoy coming in, you have logistics, you have start to track all your friendly units, so you must know the situation around you. Then you observe the triggers I mentioned earlier. Like the triggers are the one that I meant just now, is that you put in the control tower, the end of a runway, a huge hangar. Those are your triggers that you already place onto your own map or your notepad lah. The other thing about I forgot to say, as a JTAC, even for Arma, you need to really bring a notebook. The execution part I was mentioning just now is that once you observe the triggers, then after you have your triggers ready, you should start to observe the enemy threats, whether there's reinforcement, QRF, and all that coming. Once you do that, the picture below it. Apologize that this is a bit not in scale, but the picture below it is that you start to assign where is the restricted areas already for the CAS, so that the CAS will know where is a no-fly zone and all that, so you know the restricted area. That's what that picture below it that says artillery close support aircraft altitude and lateral separation. This is also assuming that you have artillery mission at the same time also for suppression. Then what you do is the other one is you look for CAS requests lah. Then you wait for CAS requests or any target of opportunities. The friendlies had gone into the area already, and they're starting to clear the, let's say, the airfield already, and suddenly there's a QRF that comes with a group of either BTRs or even some armored tanks or all that. That's when the troops will start to call for a CAS request. That when you really need the 9 line or the CAS close air support danger close already, and then from there you determine the type of control. I'll go through the type 1, type 2, type 3 control. So you have to understand whether that request is a type 1, type 2, or type 3, and then that's when you go into the transmitting of the 9 line and the CAS brief already, and the aircraft will start to do its CAS attack. The CAS attack will look into what you call it, all the procedures that the IPs, the markings of the targets, and then the aircraft also confirm the targets via your markings, be it smoke or laser designation. He will confirm whether that I have, I contact blue smoke, BTR contact. So you said affirm, contact, proceed, or continue. That's how the script will go later. I'll go through that with. So once that's done, then the aircraft will proceed to its inbound and execute its weapon release. Uh, well, very important is before the weapon release. One more time, he will make sure that he will ask for a clear hot. Usually, he will just tell you that I'm inbound in from the north. Then you say Roger that, cleared hot, or cleared dry. Cleared dry means or proceed dry, meaning you will pass the area and he will not employ weapons, because sometimes things have changed. The situation can change while you are planning. So he will say, negative, negative. I need you are cleared dry. Just pass through the target, or he will just tell you to abort. Okay. Then if everything is cleared hot, the aircraft will proceed for weapon release, and then after that you will go down to the next picture. It's actually upon the weapon release is a BDA. It's actually a battle damage assessment. So then if the battle damage assessment is two parts, like if it's a mission complete, target destroyed, the mission complete. If it's not, then you can also reassign for a repeat attack. All right. Any questions from you? That is the flow of the three parts: the planning, the execution, uh, the planning, the preparation, and the execution. Those are the three parts of it.
Okay, yeah, just a question, right?
Yep.
Okay, in terms of like some of the operation, because when we call for cars, right?
Yep.
The possibility of a threat to the cars, do we take that risk, or do we really need to kind of sort out to make sure there's no anti-air system and also rocket system in the area?
It's also the JTAC's responsibility to make sure that the area is cleared from air threats, because you are on the ground. You have a clear visibility of the threats better than the pilots in the air. Um, Also, you are also in contact with troops on other troops on the ground, because your radio would have also be connected to the platoon net, and you will be also receiving a lot of what you call that, sit rep reports and all that, whereby you may have a squad that is far west that side and saying that they have eyes on a triple A or a SAM site on that side. You would need to be well aware of that and mark it on your map already. So you are pretty much responsible to also let the pilots or the aircraft know that there's potential threats 1 click northeast of friendly troops right now, an OP5 or whatever. So yes, you are the one that are the coordinator and the deconflicting of all these things.
Okay, in terms of like sometimes because of the viewpoint, like we are coming from one direction, so some of those buildings we can't see on the other side, right? Do we really take the risk to call for cars even without knowledge of what's on the other side of the town?
Usually no lah. Usually no is because uh, uh, let's say if you have a troop, the reason why you want to call cars there is that you already have troops in contact there. They are really pinned down badly and they can't do anything. CAS is usually on support role. You don't send a CAS in front to attack something that you're not aware of. That's why sometimes there's also this our debate lah, that if we send cars there just to whack all the troops in the front lines before even the troops get there, then poor thing lah, lain tak ada makan lah,
Yeah.
you know. So it's also important that people know the air wing as well as the JTAC. The role is very much support. Those who come into these slots must be at least be disciplined enough to wait for support requests rather than just going out there to clear the area lah. Unless otherwise,
Okay.
unless and otherwise is intended by the commander that he gives a clearance to the JTAC. I need you to go there and clear it. And if you need to go there to clear it, if you have no intel over there, uh, then the JTAC suggests that maybe instead of sending the A10 there, you send an Apache if you have the asset to look at have a better position in the area there to uh, at least scout the area before you even intend to send an A10 or other assets lah. You may actually send a logistics like an unarmed little bird or an unarmed Black Hawk to go to an area there and just give a rough area scan or recon to make sure that those places are clear from air threats. Hi, Biscuit. As I mentioned to Aceh just now, no worries. Aku sudah record this, and you can refer to the things that you have missed out. We're just still in the middle of the theory part. Kalau you boleh, Biscuit, you ada dia punya PDF ke document tak? Kalau
Not yet.
kalau you ada, just take it out and then move to page 10. I didn't put the page number, but you count 10 pages under the part where it's right after CAS planning. I'm now in the slide that says execution.
Alright.
Right? Then at least
Okay,
you can follow.
one more question I'll get it.
Sure, James.
Okay, just to share experience last night, right? Okay, last night the thing is like when one of our team was pinned down by the BDR, right? Katsu actually request permission to send the cars to take it out. But I hesitate a bit because we haven't have intel on the other side of the town, which is where the BTR was hiding in the first place. So this is the type of things. Do we take that risk of sending a cars even if we do not know if there's an anti-air behind those buildings from our side? By being engaged.
Okay, like I said, the risk assessment comes from the platoon lead or the leader of the mission. If you find that you would have either most likely you will send a squad over there to have some eyes lah. If you don't have a squad to go over there to have some eyes, honestly, the platoon leader have to weigh the risk. If let's say you are sending, like yesterday I was on Littlebird, if you were to get the JTAC to send me on a Littlebird to go close by, and I get shot down by a infrared SAM or some sort of a, that I can't detect, obviously it's a bad call lah, because the Littlebird, for one, it's fast, but it can't take any damage one. It will crash. Even some small arms fire also koyak already. And the Littlebird has very poor. If I'm alone, I don't even have a co-pilot. My situation awareness is very poor also. So I rely on my eyes only. So yeah, I have to go really close and zoom really close to see whether there's any threats there while I'm trying to figure out how to attack what you call this, the enemy that you have assigned me over there. So if your asset is just like a little bird with very like FFARs, and you have a good feeling that the other side is either a BTR or a armor with autocannons, I would suggest you don't take the risk lah.
Okay.
Right? Taking a risk would be more if you do have uh, Apaches that can take it out from like 3 kilometers away. Then you can send Apaches to an area, BP maybe on an angle that he can see better than you, and then get the Apache to take it out. But on a little bird, no, you shouldn't. All right?
Okay.
Okay.
But we sent for you anyway last night because you were really pinned down.
Well, I mean, you got really pinned down, and I think Katsu did a good, in a way also. He did. He says he watched a lot of videos, so even not trained also, he did send me in a very good trajectory that is not really straight in and blind and kill, But he did tell me, you go in that side, and then from this angle you come in, and then you should what you call that uh, ec- not extract, sorry, egress out from another area. So it was okay lah. I thought it's risky, but it went well lah. All right. Then okay. Move to the next slide right now. The next slide, if everybody's on the same page with me, is a picture of artillery close support aircraft attitude and lateral separations. But the important thing is that I'll just quickly just tell you what you mean by deconflicting this one. Everyone has the same page with me? Am I on the same page, or I lost you guys, or I went too fast?
Sama.
Sama. Okay. This one basically is just to tell you that this one later on when I go into 9 line, you will know why this is important. Uh, you are supposed to guide the aircraft to come in at a certain angle, and also to give him certain restrictions on dia altitude, and then tell him where the friendly is and all that, and then make sure that you get the right close support and direct him away from an egress point that is not in conflict with the tempat yang no-fly zone or restricted airspace. Because the restricted airspace in real life, sometimes at the same time there's close air support, there's also artillery that is continuously suppressing an area. Most of the time the artillery will suppressing AA for you, if there is a mission like that lah. Artillery can suppress the AA like ZSU or mainly like SAM sites and all that. When you do the CAS support, you would make sure that it goes down to a minimum altitude so that it doesn't hit potential hit with a flying shell that's coming from artillery, and make sure you direct him out lah. So these are the things that JTAC do. This is like a air traffic controller, which is why uh, make it to what you call this. You're supposed to make it mainly like your control tower lah, in the front lines lah. Okay, next page, the execution as I just now. This is the basically just final details. Um, Once the CAS has already weapons release, the assessment of the CAS is important. One of which is the BDA, which I mentioned. BDA, those macam acai dengan biskut tadi I explain BDA. You orang tahu apa BDA kan? It's a battle damage assessment report. So it's a report that the JTAC will give a BDA after the weapons release, to say that you have good hits or you miss targets. Targets are 200 meters west of your drop point or something like that. Just to give him more details on getting him back on target. Kalau weapons, kalau target destroyed, you just say good hits. Target destroyed, end of mission. Assuming that you got a good hit, but the thing is still up, like yesterday, the 2 days ago, when we did the mission whereby uh, MK hit the BD, what you call it, BTR. BTR was destroyed, but the troops came out from the BTR and they started to attack. So that was a partial success. So I told him the BDA. I said battle damage, or I said BDA report as follows: BTR is destroyed. However, you have troops that came out from it, and the troops are now in open, and they are actually retaliating on our troops. You are cleared hot for a repeat. That's where the tasking come in again. So you can ask him to go for a second round lah, or third round, or until necessary lah. So that's the tasking. Or if the tasking is done, you can give him another tasking. You say mission complete. Proceed back to IP fort and continue to orbit at IP. So he will go back there and he will uh, circle around on station for your next tasking lah. Or you can tell him to please orbit at 700 meters to provide further intel on ground for troops. He can at least give you some recon and all that at above and do a racetrack orbit ke atas. All right, next page. Condition for effective close air support. These are the few conditions when I go through very quickly on this. Uh, to have a really good, effective close air support, obviously JTAC as well as the pilots, you have to go through effective training and proficiency, like what we are doing right now. Because if you guys can't communicate proper, the JTAC team, which includes the JTAC as well as the air assets, are all bad. It's pretty much uh, battle ineffective lah. You can't do a good mission. It's very also important to do the planning, which I mentioned earlier. How do you do the planning and how you integrate the planning? Command and control would mean that you have to be able to command the air assets, and you must be able to control it. The moment you lose control, in sense like for example your radio rosak, or you can't even get a good signal, or the signal is very bad, and the moment you can't control, you are ineffective already, because you can't command and you can't do it. Air superiority means that for a CAS mission, you have to control the skies. Meaning, just I mentioned earlier, if let's say that same sky have enemy air to air, a MiG-27 is in the air, you have no air superiority. Being a CAS support, if you don't have that, if someone is better than you, you don't call in your CAS already. You have to clear the skies with all the air-to-air threats, or to some point also to on the ground threats, which are the SAM. If you all those cleared and then you rule the skies, that's when you call in sky air support. This is theory lah, best possible, like James you mentioned. There's no way you can every time clear it because things will pop up, right? So yeah, that's when it's very dynamic and fluid. You should have some sort of target marking, like you can laser, you can have smoke, um, you can throw IR grenades, or you can have your grenade launchers, which I just now also say it's important that your gear that you bring as a JTAC would include grenade launchers and smoke grenades. Once you have target markings, then you are at least efficient. Um, Streamlined and flexible procedure means that you should also have procedures set and also to be streamlined with other units. Um, uh, like you have, let's say, JTAC, and you have in a platoon that has 3 squads. All 3 squads should also have a streamlined procedure that the squad in front could also give information to the JTAC rather than the JTAC doing all the work. So once the procedures and are streamlined across the whole entire platoon, then you can be effective. Meaning uh, teamwork from all squads. Likewise, teamwork from other platoons if we are in joint ops also. say we have the Philippines that come and play with us. So if we have flexible procedures and streamlined procedures between the Philippine team and our team, the JTAC will be damn bloody efficient. Okay, you must also have the right appropriate ordinance. Uh, don't send me on a gun run to a T90 and ask me to take out a armored tank with my, you know, my two little miniguns, So
Doesn't work.
yeah, even rockets. If you have rockets on a BTR like yesterday, it's not going to destroy it. It's going to disarm it or maybe just rosak. But be aware that when it's rosak, the enemy could also actually repair it and suddenly it's back in what you call in service again. So yeah, just make sure that the appropriate ordnance are there. Hellfires. Don't send me to fire hellfires onto squads lah, on troops, enemy troops. It's doable, but it's in real life it's mahal lah. It's about 60. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 600 600,000 USD per hellfire or something like that. You shoot 6 people on the ground is what a waste. Um, Favorable environmental conditions. Don't send me out in a sandstorm, that kind of thing. And also if let's say terrain and all that, don't you have to be aware of the terrain around you to make it very, very efficient. All right, that's conditions. Next one.